Welcome to this emergency edition of the Commentary Magazine Daily Podcast. We are recording this. It is, as I speak, 10:52 p.m. Tuesday, September 10th. You will be hearing this likely on Wednesday, September 11th. It will be our Wednesday podcast, but we are doing it immediately following the conclusion of the Trump-Harris debate in Philadelphia last night. Okay, so quick, we're going to go around quick. Seth, who won?
Oh, I thought you were going to do the intro stuff first in the hot.
No intro stuff.
I had myself on mute. Kamala won.
Kamala won. Christine?
Harris.
Abe?
Kamala Harris.
Matt?
Yeah, Harris won on points.
Okay. I think Harris slaughtered him. So we got points, we got slaughter, we got three, we got three Harris wins. And I totally baffled. I'm totally kind of shaken in a weird way because I was feeling, as I told Abe earlier today, anxious about watching this because I was sort of convinced that she was going to faceplant and that it was going to be hard and agonizing to watch. I didn't know that whether Trump was going to do well or badly. I can make a longer argument later about why I think she basically won almost every minute of the debate, but I don't want to dominate the conversation in that way at the outset. So, Matt, let's say, how about try this? Yeah,
so I have a few things to say about the debate. First of all, it was 3-on-1. It was pretty remarkable how heavily the moderators leaned toward Harris. Just compare the behavior of these moderators, David Muir and Lindsey Davis, with the behavior of the moderators in the CNN debate, Jake Tapper and Dana Bash. Tapper and Bash just let the candidates go. They just let the candidates go. They asked a question, and the candidates went according to the rules, and then they moved on. These two moderators from ABC consistently, quote unquote, fact check Trump, and never, to my knowledge, never actually said something that Kamala Harris uttered was false. When in fact, I have a list of about 8 or 10 things that she said are absolutely false, including the incredible statement she made at one point that there are no active duty American soldiers in combat.
Yes, thank you.
In the world? What is that? We're fighting the Houthis, the most active the Navy has been since the Second World War. Just the New York Times reports this major anti-ISIS operation just 2 weeks ago.
The Fifth Fleet's in the Red Sea right now.
Yeah. What is that? Okay, so that's number one. It was completely 3-on-1.
They're not storming Omaha Beach, is what she means.
She doesn't know what she's talking about.
Right. Okay.
She doesn't know what she's talking about.
Yes,
and that's the same thing with her energy answer. Her energy answer, at one point she starts saying, well, I'm for all forms of energy because we got to get ourselves off of reliance on foreign oil. Has she looked at a Department of Energy report? We are the fracking superpower. We are a net exporter of energy, and it's been that way for years. Misstatements that were not checked by the moderators. The other thing the moderators would do is that they would ask Trump a loaded question. Trump would give his response, and then they would turn to Harris and ask some version of, Vice President Harris, why do you think Trump is a mendacious thug? And then she would give her thing. Now, I know we're not supposed to comment about the moderators. That's what I'm hearing from Democrats on social media. We know that Harris won because conservatives are complaining about the moderators. I think you can hold both statements at once in the same time, and that both Harris won and the moderators were extremely unfair in this debate. The second thing I'd say is, clearly the preparation worked for Kamala Harris. She had spent days in her hotel in Pittsburgh running through this debate, and she had her lines down. She hit all her marks. She knew what she wanted to say, and she had some prepared lines. Trump had a few prepared lines too, but the preparation counts, and it's why so many politicians have legal training. She's a lawyer by profession. She knows how to make her case. She studies forensics. She's been doing that her whole life. But I wonder, as to say that she wins the debate on points, but when you dissect this debate, when certain images or moments start going and circulating in social media, I think that audiences may hear a different debate than the one that we were all intently analyzing through the frame of, oh, who's on offense now, who's on defense now. Trump had some pretty funny lines. He used the "I am talking" line against her. He had the "run spot run" line.
Well, okay, can I complain for a second about
Sure.
the "I'm talking" line? Because it was good. And then he said, "You see what I did there?"
Right.
He
Well, that's what Tim
actually
Walz
said-
said. That's what Tim Walz
Okay.
said when he accused
Well,
and
he's-
defamed
he's-
J.D. Vance for having sex with the couch. So
I know, but he's bad too. So I'm just saying he almost won a moment when he said, "I'm talking here," and then he had to do the wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Know what I mean? Know what I mean? I'm talking here, just like you said to Mike Pence. Remember, like that. So that, which was, I think, indicative of one of the reasons that I am less convinced than you are that the time will read this favorably for him.
First of all, the time, John, it's September 10th. And,
Yes.
there are 2 more months left in the campaign. And
Yes.
granted, voting will start pretty soon. But
Yes.
let's understand that I think
Okay.
she could get some bump out of this debate.
Mhm.
But like the pre-convention bump, it might not last. And I'll just end with this before I relinquish the floor. What I learned from the debate this evening is that if Donald Trump wins, the Russia-Ukraine war will end before Inauguration Day 2025. However, if Donald Trump loses, Israel will cease to exist in 2
In 2 years. Yes.
So for me, the choice is clear.
Okay. Okay, so the moderators were terrible, and it was a terrible job of moderation. There have been 3 uniquely terrible jobs of moderation in the last 4 election cycles. There was John Harwood in the first CNBC debate in the 2012 Republican primary, in which John Harwood basically attacked all the Republicans on stage for being Republicans and yelled at them for being Republicans. And then there was, of course, Candy Crowley, who clearly had been briefed by the Obama team on having at the ready a piece of paper that Obama would direct her to read from about what was said about Benghazi. That, I think, remains the worst debating, moderating moment of our lifetimes. This comes pretty close in the unbelievable slant.
This was in the totality of it. This was the worst. And I, and as I've been saying, I mean, Kamala very clearly won. I think without them, and if I were Kamala's camp, I actually probably would have gotten annoyed at some point because they were so bad that you knew people were going to talk about it, and she didn't need them, and the conversation never needed to take place. She would have won.
Oh,
But the Candy Crowley thing is the moment.
no,
The
see, I
Candy
think
thing
she
can't
did
be
need.
dethroned 'cause
Okay,
it's
go
that
ahead,
1 month.
Christine.
Yeah.
So I think she did need them, and I would guess. In fact, I'm gonna take a leap here and guess that none of you have watched Dance Moms. The moderators were the dance moms, and it's not just a matter of political slant. It's
on my
literally
cue.
Yeah, they're literally there going, "Come on, I know you can do it. You can do it. You can do it." And they're just the energy of urging her on. And remember, there was no live audience. They performed a role that I do agree with you, Seth, that it was so obvious that it probably at a certain point became kind of egregious enough that even her campaign would kind of wince. But they were not. It wasn't on the political leanings. It was the tone, and I think that's where his. And so this is where I will withhold judgment on Matt's prediction, although I think he might be right about this. But the angry tone that she did get under his skin. And that's where the dance moms were sort of very happy to see that. They encouraged that by allowing her follow-ups, by saying to him, oh, they would say, thank you, Vice President. And then to Trump, they would say, "No, thank you." I mean, there were so many tonal shifts throughout this debate.
Not
that I found
only that,
fascinating.
I agree with you. I want to say first off, I think the moderators, this was a scandal. I think this was a scandalous performance by them. And I think overall, it's a much more important issue than anything Trump actually said. The fact that we can't get anything resembling a fair debate during a presidential campaign, that's an enormous problem, and it resonates in so many areas. At the same time,
yes.
I think that Trump, all on his own, was a mess, was terrible, was a total mess. But where I think Christine is right, that she needed the moderators, is also in that they followed up on his dodgy answers and they never followed up on hers. And had they followed up on hers, we might have seen a very different trajectory tonight. I don't know that we would have at all, but we might have seen her stumble, and they were giving her absolutely no path to stumble down.
Trump spoke for 10 more minutes than Kamala Harris spoke in this debate. So let's just take that in for a second, because maybe if he had spoken less, they would have asked her more questions and would have fact-checked her a little more, or followed up with her. He would not stop talking. He would not stop talking. And from the very moment that the debate started, he was off to the crazy races. I'm not even talking about issues.
He was okay for the first few minutes. Actually,
I do not agree, because
I think he was.
Here's
at
what
the
I would say.
beginning, he was calm. He didn't even smirk.
Okay. Here's what I would say.
That he likes to give. He controlled himself briefly.
He was not yelling until 15 minutes in. But if you weren't us and you don't follow politics on a day-to-day or hour-to-hour basis, from his first answer throughout, he made no sense, because he does not define, I don't mean to get like weird, like an editor here, but he does not define his antecedents. And he uses the word they interchangeably to mean the Biden administration, the Taliban,
the pets of Americans,
migrants. He just uses the word they because he knows what he's referring to in his head. And he doesn't know that he has to tell people now I'm going to talk about this. The migrants did this. Once I say migrants, then on second reference, I can say they. Ordinary people.
That's standard Trumpese. That's not him off the rails.
People's opinions of Trump are not going to change based on this debate. The question is, will people's opinions of Harris change on this debate?
Right.
And I do think there's a chance that those views of Harris will improve as a consequence of her performance. However, there's a lot of breadcrumbs that are left in this debate that can then be picked up and exploited. I mean, the answers on some of these policies were not convincing. She did not separate herself from Joe Biden. Now, did Trump make the case? Well, no, but he's Trump. I was listening to this debate. I thought this is what it's like to read James Joyce. You know, I've never really read James Joyce in full. I dip in and out, but you listen to Trump and it's a stream of consciousness. There was at one point he said, he was talking, I think it was on the planted race question, it's a total gimme, right? About when did you decide to bring up the fact that you didn't know Harris was black, and the comments you made to the National Association of Black Journalists. And in his stream of conscious answer, he said the phrase, he said this sentence, "I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it." So you're getting his reactions in real time. You're getting the emotions. He tells.
I don't know what she is, but I accept her.
Exactly. I don't care. Right. And so that's just who he is. The question is, did this do a good job? Did this improve Harris's impression of who she is? And I think on net probably gives her a little bit of a bump.
Okay. I don't think that you can divorce whether she looked good from whether he looked bad. You can say that he was Trump and he was just Trump. This was the worst version of Trump.
Oh no, not at all.
Yeah.
Tom. No.
I agree.
This was closer to the first debate with Hillary in 2016 than it was to the debate with Biden in 2020. The debate with Biden in 2020 was the worst. The debate with Biden in 24 was his best.
Right.
But this was closer to the debate with Hillary, which I remember coming out of that, the consensus was, whoa, did he really mess up?
Yeah.
The yelly tone, which again, not to, as a woman, I get to say this, but there is, I have, various text chains of female friends, many of whom are sort of Democratic or independent, voters, exactly the people who Trump should be trying to cultivate. That was the thing that struck them immediately. They were like, "Oh, he's kind of keeping it together. Oh boy, that tone. It was the volume, and it was the anger, the sort of simmering anger, which he probably thought, I'm keeping it together. I'm not yelling. But you could tell that it was a huge effort. That is very off-putting because it just escalated slowly throughout the rest of the evening. He never kind of brought it back. So when David Moore, who would calmly say, "Thank you. Okay." He actually started to talk more softly as a contrast. And when she spoke, it was softer. I know tone policing, people think it's stupid, but when you watch that, if you don't have a really strong impression of Kamala Harris and you already know what you think about Trump, that is a bit of a danger for the voters he should be trying to reach, those voters in Pennsylvania, those voters in those swing states.
Yeah, I agree with John actually on this point. I think this was the worst. This was terrible. I mean, I don't know what was. There was nothing salvageable at a certain point. It was the self-pity also, Christine,
the defensiveness,
was there in abundance, and sort of repeating broad stock accusations that had nothing to do with what was under discussion.
He had
he remembered things later that he didn't remember in earlier answers, and so he'd go back to them. The Keystone Pipeline was one example. He was trying to say, he was saying, well, why did your administration cancel the XL pipeline? And then he said XL several times, like it wasn't just a pipeline, it was an XL pipeline, That's bigger than an L pipeline. And then later, about 20 minutes later, so the conversation sort of came around to energy again. And he went, I don't understand why you guys canceled Keystone. You guys canceled Keystone. That was the sort of thing, which is like he gave the second half of the name of the pipeline in his first practiced answer on energy. And when he got a chance later on, he gave the first half of the name of the pipeline. But neither time he say the full name of the pipeline.
He missed the gimmies. Look, does she own a gun?
It's the same pipeline.
Does she own a gun? I'm sorry. The takeaway, does she own a gun? He should have turned to her and said, what kind of gun? Someone asked her what kind of gun. When did you buy it?
That was a real headline
insane.
for me.
She said, I have a gun, and Tim Walz has a gun. And my son texted me and said, because I'm at my office, said, what kind of gun do you think she has? And
I'm telling you, a staffer bought that gun last night.
No, it's made of soap.
Well, she bought the gun when she worked at McDonald's.
Yeah,
well, she doesn't need a gun. She has Secret Service. I mean, this is the point. Like, she wants to take your guns, but she doesn't need them anyway.
And of course,
he missed that. He could have jumped on that.
He missed everything. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Say she won on points. That's fine. He did not prevail in a single exchange with her for 90 minutes. And why was that? He had a very simple task tonight. He had to define her as dangerously liberal, right? And say she was out of touch and she was liberal. And he never said that. He called her a Marxist. So yeah, I guess
Marxist, said she was horrible. Said
she was horrible.
Banning
she's the worst ever.
Fracking. Yes. She was behind the problems with the border.
Yeah. Okay. No
problems with Afghanistan. He was relentless in his attacks on her.
No, but he didn't say until his final statement, until the last paragraph, that he said, you believe things that the American people don't believe, and you're hiding it from them, and you're trying to hide it from them, but you are in fact dangerously liberal. He couldn't compress. So what he did was he went, blah, I have 27 different things in my head, and I'm going to say them seriatim or without any order whatsoever. And I'm telling you, I know I seem a little agitated, but it's like watching the David Lynch Dune or something like that, where you're watching, you're going, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Why are you doing that?
So
Go
his
here.
big
You're right
mistakes
there.
where he fell for the baiting.
Yeah.
That was the big mistakes. And it came up in a couple times where he had the opportunity to draw the contrast on the policy issues and to continue attacking her for her positions in the past, which he is trying to define her now based on those positions back in 2020. But he would get distracted because when she brought up the crowd size or the people leaving the rallies early, he would then have to spend 2 minutes talking about, no, they're not leaving and no, you don't have anybody at your rallies. When she used the word disgrace, she said that people were calling him a disgrace to him twice. And also when she was mentioned all of the former employees of his, Republicans who are saying that he should not be president again and that are supporting her. And he, rather than attacking her and drawing the contrast, he went and said, well, this is because I fire people. This is the reason. No one's ever
You never fire anybody.
Right. And in fact, that's kind of an attack too. But that was, I think, where he fell behind, which was he couldn't let these personal kind of needles, which were completely planned and which we could all have anticipated happening, from getting under his skin and from diverting him from his mission.
So you say
this morning,
he's Trump.
Although by the time people hear this, it will be yesterday morning. But John gave us the stat of how Trump has been in twice as many presidential level debates, which includes primary debates, than the next closest debater, than the next person who's been in the number of the debates they've been in. And yet, so we've seen all those Trump debates, and we knew all this stuff was coming. Although you probably didn't need to see the debates to know stuff, because Trump is Trump and the attacks are open there. But what did he get out of debating 18 times on the presidential level? What we talked when he beat Biden in the debate, we were like, oh, machine learning, maybe. But I think it really was just like Biden just kind of had an aneurysm on stage and keeled over.
Okay.
I don't think he learned.
But I didn't I say that? I said that in response to John's point. Yes.
He fell for every trap that she laid for him. And the reason that he fell for the trap, that meant that he talked about crowd sizes and how no one went to her rallies. Then he talked about January 6th and how it was fine because nobody was killed except the saintly Ashley Babbitt, who was attacking a police officer and coming at a police officer. He talked about how he had nothing to do with the rally. They asked him to show up at the rally that he planned. So he brought up and relitigated January 6th on his own. He chose to relitigate January 6th on his own. Not helpful to him to have a 2-minute peroration about the martyrdom of Ashley Babbitt, whom nobody in America knows. No one knows who that is if you're not in the fever swamps of the right. Nobody knows and nobody cares. He went there. She pushed his buttons and he responded.
No, they asked him asked him about January 6th. Actually, but he didn't just bring that up. He was asked a direct question about January 6th. She was never asked about any of the riots, any of the Minnesota bail fund, any of that stuff.
I am not defending their treatment of her. I am saying that he answered every question that had involved him and his presidency and things that maybe he did wrong, by being defensive and sounding like a crazy person. And that elevates her. It's not just that she performed okay, even though she lied and misled and wasn't followed up on and all of that. He made her look good because she pushed his button. And you know why he does that? Because he is a solipsist. And if the subject is going to turn to him, he's going to much more happily speak about himself than he is going to talk about her. This whole debate was supposed to be about defining her. She's the new thing. If he defines her, he can win. If he's the subject of this election, she's going to win. That was all. Okay, you don't.
He called her a communist.
A Marxist.
Her father is a Marxist professor, and he taught her well. And then we had the conversation about whether the Haitian immigrants are eating cats in Springfield, Ohio.
Yeah, that was
So
good.
did he?
By the way,
He
he
said
said
dogs.
dogs. He said
He
dogs.
said
Nobody
dogs. I
said.
know.
First of all, here's the story. So Springfield, Ohio, migrants are eating. The story comes out. One person says they ate my cat. And the cops say, there's no evidence that anyone ate a cat here in Springfield, Ohio. However, there does seem to be evidence that migrants were plucking geese out of the pond and eating the geese. And he then said, everyone's eating dogs. And this is why he may lose the
But he
election.
also said, I saw on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
That
the best
people were
part.
There's
By
that
the way,
weird
if you
surreal
don't-
moment.
If you don't plug the geese, they will pluck you out of the pond. So I don't actually have a problem with that. But yes, the photo that went around, the famous photo that started this whole thing, was of someone in a different town in Ohio walking around holding a bird. I assume dead bird, but a very large dead bird. And I'm not even sure that was a goose, but that was the photo that
They
started
have
it,
some
was that-
audio of some cop in Springfield saying they're eating the geese. I don't even care.
But he
Why
didn't
is he talking about that
because-
when he had
no.
to say you caused
No,
what
and
you've
no,
done in
but he-
Afghanistan? Okay.
Well, it's even worse than that because that was a perfect opportunity for a disciplined candidate who was well prepared and not a narcissist to say, you know what? I don't know if that's real or false. I know it's going around social media, but here's what I do know. You let X number of people across the border illegally. You've released X number of people, including people on our watch list who might be terrorists. And you know what? They move into these small towns. The problem isn't, as he kept saying, like they're criminals, they're this, they're that. You know what? Housing costs go up because they take a lot of the affordable housing. Schools are oversubscribed because they have children and they have to be enrolled in school. There are all kinds of strains on an already strained economy. If you're a middle or lower middle class voter in a small town in the USA, that's who he should have been speaking to. But he just did not. He did not do that.
Because as long as he could talk about himself, you can always get him. It's like the story that people say when you're on dates. What's the best way to draw somebody out is ask them about themselves. The challenge for Trump tonight was not to talk about himself, but to talk about her. And Matt says that he talked about her. And I think if we go and look at the transcript tomorrow, we will discover that 75% of what he said was in self-defense and that 25% was about her. And he needn't ever have spent a second defending himself. In other words, he could have just said...
in our fantasy world, he wouldn't do that.
It's not
But
my
this
fantasy world. It's like...
No, this is you're
does he
holding
wanna
him
win?
to a standard for which he has never
Right. And he lost,
been
as I
applied to
recall,
him.
He
right?
lost the last election.
So who was he
And-
talking to? Who was he talking to? Because he clearly
He was
looked
talking to
internal-
his supporters.
Exactly.
He was talking
Yeah.
to his supporters. That's who he always talks to.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no different. There's nothing that we saw from Donald Trump tonight that we haven't seen a million times before. And the defensiveness, I think what happened was he noticed, as everyone else did, that the moderators were favoring Harris. And so he when he gets in that situation, he has to be contrarian. He has to fight back, right? That's his entire personality. And so not only was he falling for her bait, and the other example of the bait was the inheritance. You know, she talked about how he got the $400 million and then went bankrupt, and so he had to respond to that. But he felt he had to defend his record. I actually think that Harris may have been slightly frustrated by the end of it, because in her closing statement, she said, you know, I wanted to talk about my plan.
My plan.
She never actually
She has
had
a plan for a plan.
She
This is
started
the
at the
plan that she-
beginning
Remember
talking
that
about her plans.
She copied. New Republic had a piece today. She pointing out she copied and pasted.
Yeah,
the
Trump. Well,
quoting
Trump
from-
cited that early on, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
he did.
I wanted
But
to talk
again,
about
he
my issues, my policy page that I copied from Joe Biden.
Here's the way to look at it. He made 247 points instead of 6. And if he'd made 6 points, if he'd said, this is what you did on the border, this is what you people did on Afghanistan, this is what happened with inflation, this is what's happened to energy production here in the United States, and this is what's happened to crime. I know you're saying to me, it's a fantasy. You're looking for Trump.
Yeah,
if
he
had
also
done that,
said those things
no,
in
but
his
he
way.
said them, and then he
did not.
He
did look,
lost in 2020. Let's get this straight. Trump lost in 2020, and he only won by a miracle in 2016. He is not. You're saying that's Trump. Fine, so he'll lose, and then that'll be the law. That'll be the end of it. I'm just saying. He had a very easy roadmap here. It's a bizarrely simple roadmap to run against Kamala. She doesn't have a record. She has to defend Biden's record, and she's been flip-flopping for a month. And it's like a gimme.
I gotta interject because you know how where she was well prepared. It wasn't on policy. It wasn't on details. It wasn't on anything. She must have had a behavioral psychologist in the room because what she did, particularly on the inheritance thing, was interesting to me. She needled him after she's constantly boasting about having been middle class. She hasn't been middle class for 50 years. And she was wearing over $10,000 worth of jewelry and God knows what her suit cost. She is a wealthy representative of exactly what the Democratic Party is now. Much more liberal, much more elite, much more wealthy. And he should have pointed that out, except, as you say, he's insecure about his own wealth, his own standing, his own position. So I really do feel they must have had some expert in that arena. And that is a huge missed opportunity because if people believe that she has the middle class's interest at heart, they are fooling themselves.
I think this brings up an interesting point, though, that we haven't gotten to, and there's a risk we won't get to it. To me, Kamala's phoniness came through loud and clear, despite the fact that she won, despite the fact that he was terrible. She seemed like there were moments where her eyes looked away as if she were trying to recall the exact phrasing in which she were prepped to deliver these remarks. Actually, there were a lot of those moments. And she's a good performer and she did great. And I'm not saying any of that. But at the end of the day, I really thought the phoniness came through very strongly. Who sees that in comparison to Trump's genuine mania?
Yeah, I was keeping a list of those moments. Yeah,
okay,
I mean,
wait a minute. Let's talk.
There was the I'm offering what I describe as an opportunity economy and making sure the United States wins the competition for the 21st century and turn the page on the same old tired rhetoric and same old tired playbook and invest in the aspirations and dreams of the American people, etc. There were
she did speak her stump speech. She sounded identical to how she sounded with Dana Bash in the interview. Like
she only has
very
one
programmed.
Client. The American people.
The American people. Yeah. And she never asked anybody if they were Democrat or Republican. She only said, how can I help?
Yes.
Are you okay?
Are you okay?
The same question she asked Jasmine Crockett at the Naval Observatory.
That's right.
And it's the first question that she asked Biden when he called to say that he was leaving the race.
So that might actually be the first thing she said. If I ever have the opportunity to meet her,
she might say,
she may
okay?
ask me, "Are you okay?" And she'll be in for quite an answer.
If she listens to this podcast, she'll definitely ask you.
Okay.
My sense of the debate was, it was clear that if Kamala Harris is our next president, we will get a change from Donald Trump.
Yeah,
but
really? Okay,
Will we get a change from the Biden-Harris administration? On that, I was not so clear. I don't think she actually made that clear to anyone.
All right, so this is what
she said. I'm not Joe Biden.
Well, that is ontologically true.
But this is what
when you copy your policy page from Biden's policy page, and when you say that you agree with everything that he has done for the last 3.5 years, maybe you haven't made that separation which is necessary to win the election.
But here's the thing. She did separate herself from Biden by describing the policy that she wants people to think she and Biden have, but don't actually have. In other words, when she described the Ukraine policy, she didn't describe the Biden-Harris Ukraine policy. They're not out there giving the Ukrainians what they need Ukraine is still standing because America's involved in, defending democracy against autocracy and stuff like that. The Ukrainians have been begging for enough material just to defend their border. And the reason they had to go into Kursk was because they didn't have enough to stop Russia from taking Ukrainian territory, enough to the fact that they thought maybe if we take some Russian territory, anything, they'll have to redeploy troops or they'll have to rethink things or whatever. The war, the borders of the war expand because America is obsessed with de-escalation.
That's right.
So the policy she described was very different. I sat there thinking, boy, this sounds great. This Kamala, the past 3.5 years sounds like an amazing Ukraine policy. I'm really proud of us, but it wasn't actually our policy. So she differentiated in pretending that they had a good foreign policy when they didn't. That was the differentiation. And if you followed along, you know that that didn't describe the Biden policy toward Ukraine at all.
Look, these are all very good. She's phony. She's full of it. What she said about Ukraine was, as you say, like illogical and a false depiction of the actual reality. She yet again spoke this blatherskite nonsense about Israel and how she'll always defend Israel, except now she's not going to defend Israel because the war needs to end right now, this second. This second, the war needs to end right now with an inconclusive with the war not fully concluded. So
can I say something about that point?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be interesting if they asked Kamala the way they asked Trump about Ukraine, if he wants Ukraine to win, if they asked Kamala if she wants Israel to win?
That would be
that would have been a
they don't want Israel.
Question.
They don't want Israel to win, so they don't want to ask. They don't want to ask that question. They seem to want Ukraine to win, so they were happy to ask that question again.
But maybe he needs to be able to say yes. He still needs to be able to say, yes, I want Ukraine to win, which he couldn't. That's the other thing.
But
the questions might be stacked, but he's still got a gimme that he doesn't take.
Because he doesn't want Ukraine to win. What evidence do we have? He wants there to be a stalemate. He wants to negotiate a stalemate between Ukraine.
I think he answered honestly about that.
Yeah, he said, I want it to end right now, and it should end. And then I know Zelensky and I know Putin, and I will get them to agree that everything will sort of freeze in place, and Ukraine won't win. So he is actually not for Ukraine to win. It's not a gimme because he actually doesn't support that. He does support Israel winning, and he didn't get there because he had to say this psychotic and actually extraordinarily dangerous thing, which is that if Kamala Harris is elected, Israel won't exist in 2 years, he said. That is not a good thing for an American politician to be saying, even about his rival, about the Jewish state. Like, I'm sorry, that is not a good thing to say, even if you're trying to say she's bad because she's irresponsible and is somehow going to drive. You're saying, I am predicting that Iran is going to destroy Israel with a nuclear weapon. Don't say that. That is not a good thing to say. Do not make the unthinkable thinkable. And it's not helpful anyway, because all he has to say is they're weak. They won't let Israel win. Let Israel win. It's fighting Hamas. Hamas is evil.
John, you're 100% right. And it's not only making the unthinkable thinkable. It's signaling to Israel's enemies, Donald Trump, who could be the president, who was the president, is out there even saying Israel is not going to exist in 2 years.
Yeah. It's like Ahmadinejad. What did Ahmadinejad say 15 years ago? He said, I'm just saying Israel's not going to be around much longer. I'm not saying how. I mean, he's saying, okay, it's going to be Kamala Harris's fault. The point is, it's a severe indiscipline. It was a bad thing to say. Okay, so two things. One is, the scandalous behavior of the moderators will have an effect doing a lightning round. Scandalous of the moderators will have some effect on the way, in the long run, the American people writ large score the debate or think about Harris and Trump or not. I'm not talking about the Federalist or us or even, National Review.
Well,
I'm talking
time
about
will tell. Time will tell, because we have to wait to see what these Insta polls say about who won the debate and
well, we have
whether
one Insta poll. We have a very important Insta poll of one that just came out.
Yes. What was that?
Taylor Swift has endorsed Kamala Harris.
Right. Which they've timed for this. Yes.
I didn't know that.
She also endorsed Biden-Harris in 2020.
I know, but she's waiting. She's waiting till after the debate. She has endorsed.
We really
Harris,
wondered where she would.
She's holding a cat in the picture that accompanied the statement that says that she is endorsing.
Well, don't take that cat to Springfield, Ohio.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and then like Ozzy Osbourne.
No, maybe she's gonna eat the cat. I don't know. I mean, okay, so it was. So
the Coneheads eat cats, right? Is that
the Coneheads?
We are deep in Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
No, Alf.
They do.
Alf
eats cats. Sorry,
I knew there was something. Alf ate cats. Okay, so all right, so that's one victory that is now off the table that we thought maybe because Travis Kelce wouldn't want his fan base necessarily to
when you
feel
saw
like,
him in that Gucci bucket hat,
he's
over.
gone.
It was done.
Okay, fine. He's gone.
All right.
John,
we got Bernie Mahomes.
Yeah.
I mean, we got Mahomes magic on MAGA's side.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we don't need Taylor Swift.
Okay.
But John, I want to pick up on your question about. So will Americans will the scandalous behavior of the moderators have make an impact on Americans? I say on balance, no, it will not. Because you have to be a close watcher to see what happened there. I think if you're just a low information voter or a medium information voter, you are watching this and saying, "Oh, I see who the winner is and who the loser is,"
right?
And that's that.
And they won't even see the debaters' questions. They're going to get most of their information on social media links, which are just the answers that either.
Well, we don't know how large this audience is going to end up being tonight, and it will be very large. I mean, it will be numbers that most primetime doesn't do outside of football. It'll be 20 million people or something like that, which is not everybody, and it may not be most people. Maybe 95% of them are already voters and have probably already made their mind up. But remember, let's just put it this way: she only needs to shift 50,000 votes in Pennsylvania, 50,000 votes in North Carolina, 40,000 votes in Georgia, and 30,000 votes in Wisconsin to get 330 electoral votes. It's not like, and he's in the same boat. So it's not like what she needs or what either of them needs is a knockout blow that is going to end up with her up 10. It's, did she do what she needed to pull people off the fence and score the same 81 million votes, let's say, that Biden got in 2020? And that I don't know the answer to, but it's not the giant challenge. I don't think that he successfully convinced anybody of anything. Right. And she was the thing that was up for discussion. And I don't think that people are going to have watched this and thought, I'm not voting. I except people who are intelligent or canny enough or like deep enough.
So okay,
I
will just push back on this thing
Okay.
because I agree with you. I said the whole time she won the debate. I'm saying she won it on points because I don't know how it's going to play in different clips and what will the attacks will fall. But I will say this though, one of her biggest problems in the past couple of weeks coming out of the convention is that people want to know more about her. You didn't get much about her in the interview in CNN. how much about her did we get in this debate? We got a lot of Trump, and with Trump, you either accept it or you loathe it. But that's been the case for 10 years now. But what did we know about Kamala Harris? So I was just writing down some of her plans. She talked about how she's middle class. We know about that. And they had the friend who was kind of like her other mother.
She's a small business owner. She loves small business.
She loves small business.
The way that Trump loves
small
Mexicans.
business.
The way, remember Trump had the taco bowl on Cinco de Mayo?
Small business that she's only going to raise capital gains taxes by 40%.
The small business.
But she loves small business. She has a housing plan. She has a huge expansion of the child tax credit. She won't ban fracking. That's what I heard. And she owns a gun. That's what I learned about Kamala Harris.
I actually think that she failed on the fracking thing. That's the one thing that I think that she missed. I think if we're talking about like there's these few voters in the muddled middle, who did they get from them? I think that Pennsylvania wasn't. I think this wasn't a big win in Pennsylvania for her tonight. I think if you break it down on the states, Trump probably can take some more solace than he otherwise could on the overall picture, because I think just in Pennsylvania, just raising the fact that, the moderators raised the fact that she flip-flopped on fracking, Trump raised it. And I think if your job depends on fracking, you don't believe for a second that she wants your job to exist tomorrow. So I do think there were points where just saying it, we're like, oh yeah, that's...
Okay, I think that is a very good point, but we have not mentioned her best 5 minutes
abortion.
At all. And those were her best 5 minutes. And why are those good for her? Because who does she need to come to drag themselves to the polling place? It's those suburban women. And it's not that they're all abortion activists or advocates. She framed it as he wants to punish you if you're pregnant and something goes wrong with your pregnancy.
Oh, and she lied through her teeth about what
she did.
She just lied about
and
what
by the
states
way,
allow abortion
Lindsay
in the
Davis,
third trimester.
The other thing is Lindsay Davis teamed up with Kamala Harris on an untruth about what partial birth abortion means.
Right.
And what Ralph Northam, again, Trump punting the state in which Ralph Northam was the governor.
He got it eventually.
He got it the second time.
He got it like the
second time.
third
That's right.
time.
He said West Virginia, and then he said Virginia. But he, in fact, said the governor of Virginia did say, well, what do you do if you deliver a baby? If the partial birth abortion fails and the baby is delivered alive, and he said you put it on the side until you figure out what to do with it. He did actually say those words and lost and was,
we will keep the infant comfortable.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's a real thing. And it is, in fact, the case that the law on these matters is very unclear and written in a very weird way, essentially to prevent doctors from being accused of murder if something happens in the course of a partial birth abortion and the baby survives and then somehow mysteriously dies afterwards. I'm sorry to laugh again, but that was a lie. But Lindsay Davis lied about it and said there is no state in which it's okay to kill a baby after.
But not only that, John, I want to say this is a moment that exemplifies both the moderator's unfairness and Trump's meltdown, because she fact-checked him on this when he never even asserted that. He didn't say this was happening. He said, this is what they want.
Yeah.
And then she fact-checked him. And then he couldn't help himself. Later on, he said it's probably happening.
Yeah.
Because he felt challenged. So it is the perfect.
And the other thing
also,
that
he said something that I really wish. I thought we were going to get a good moment from the moderators. He told them what question to ask Kamala.
Yeah,
I practically jumped out of my seat. Yes, he's right. Ask the candidate. Is it 7 months? Is it 8 months?
Yes.
Where specifically do you draw the line?
She just said Roe v. Wade.
You only allow for the rape, incest, and health of the mother exceptions.
Yeah. And right. And
No
she
one
said Roe v.
ever
Wade, and
She said,
that is
yes.
that is an honest answer because Roe v. Wade contains no protections for
Right.
the unborn.
That's right.
So therefore the question is a fair question. They didn't ask it. And of course
But it's how she told the stories. It's those
the
stories.
stories were
stories
told
about
extraordinarily
she-
well.
However, I gotta
The
say,
woman is in a car and
Right.
she's miscarrying in the car, and they won't help her because they're worried they'll be accused of doing an abortion. And she's crying in the car, and I don't know what the hell this story is. I know there's the story, the woman who was at the convention, Democratic convention, telling a horror story about her about a problem relating to needing a DNC with a pregnancy that was going awry. But that story had that quality of the mythological horror story that doesn't quite have beat on the bones of it. Nonetheless, it was very effective, and she had that down the way a good prosecutor has down that closing statement, like that she worked on, right? That was a very
she's been giving talks about this for years now. This is
Okay,
actually what the Biden administration has had her out doing, is talking to women's groups about abortion.
Yeah,
So-
and it's a response to him saying, this is what people wanted. They wanted the states to deal with it and not the courts. And she launched.
the worst
They
thing,
didn't want to have to, have this baby in a car. Whatever. Like it was planned to the specific way that he was trying to deflect blame from the story.
The worst thing that ever happened to Donald Trump, and that may cost him the presidency again, is somebody telling him, well, there are a bunch of liberal jurists, including Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who did not think that Roe was a good decision. So, you can cite that. You can say, like, Ruth Bader Ginsburg thought it was probably would have been best left to the political system. And somehow in his head, this has morphed because he's said it over and over. Everybody,
It's so true.
on every side wanted this to go back to the states, and I did it. And half the country and one entire political party did not want it to go back to the states. And he cannot get it out of his head. He can't get it out of his head. It is amazing. It is an amazing thing because it's like, what are you talking about? I did what you wanted. You all wanted it to go back to the states. And, when it goes back to the states, some of them are liberal. Ohio is liberal. Kansas, the law is liberal.
As it's working out, they're all liberal when it goes back to the
I know,
states.
right? Yeah. So anyway, I just, someone did him a terrible disservice by trying to feed him a very limited but a decent talking point, right? That Roe was a political decision and that it had terrible political consequences, and that its lifting meant that we were taking a different tack on this. But of course, he has no capacity to do that. Okay, so I'd already asked the question about whether or not the moderators were going to, and we should close on this, which is, does it matter that she won? All five of us think she won. So I'm just going to stipulate for the record that she won. Does it matter that she won? Are the dynamics of this race that it's a 1-point race? Because they have these polls. There's very little margin in them, right? They're 40, 49, 48, 50, 49. They're pushing people to say who they're going to vote for and getting close to 100% numbers. So we keep saying there are 9% in the middle might change their vote. Maybe not. Maybe the debate doesn't matter. Maybe it doesn't matter because this is a 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and it's whoever, just gets the ball over the end zone, over the line on election day is going to win. What is your? I know we don't know, so
it matters. It matters because it does remind people of Trump's weaknesses, his temperament.
Yeah. I think it could matter in the next week. You'll see some polls either showing her with still a narrow lead, or maybe her lead gets back up to 3 or 4 points. But I don't know if this is a game change debate like the Trump-Biden debate in June. That was a real game change debate.
That was the game change debate.
Well, remember, you mocked me.
Other.
You mocked me that night of the debate because earlier I had made the case that debates don't really matter. And When I was presented with this challenge, this rebuke from you, I pointed out that Trump was winning going into the debate, and he was going to be winning after the debate with Biden, even though it did matter in the sense that Biden ultimately withdrew from the race.
You've just been steaming.
Okay,
You've
but
been
he also-
steaming
by
about
the
this
way-
for
yeah, by
months.
the way, no, but
I will hold to my previous thesis
Okay,
that debates don't matter all that
Okay.
much.
Okay,
and
yes.
and so Harris
Okay.
has a tiny lead, 1 point lead in the RCP
Right.
average before. She might have a 2 point lead at the end of next week.
The
Okay,
question
so
she
that's a
wasn't
week.
asked, but the question she wasn't asked about what she knew about Biden's condition, all the stuff that I
Oh,
think
yeah.
a lot of people, the fact that he's still today he said, I'm going to do 9/11 and I'm going to go see my granddaughter.
Biden, yeah.
Biden is not clearly capable of performing the role of commander in chief right now, yet he is.
Yeah.
And who is the only person constitutionally who can say he's not? The vice president. And that question should have been asked. And had this been
He
Mike
tried.
Pence,
He
tried to bring
but
it
he
up.
couldn't. He
He-
did bring
he
it up,
couldn't
but
get
he
there.
didn't
I
do
know.
it
He couldn't get there.
in a comprehensible way. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Can
that's
I
yes,
answer
please.
you?
Yes,
give you my
please.
answers?
Yes.
It matters. It will help Kamala considerably. It is not dispositive. I totally agree with Matt. But it will help her because she presented a facsimile of someone who is capable, which was an open question. For me, it's
Right.
still a settled question in the other direction.
No, she did not
But-
seem like Selena Meyer, I would
Right.
say. So she cleared that bar,
That, and I think, I suspect,
which is probably an important bar to clear.
it is an
actually.
important bar to
Okay.
clear, and I also suspect that this is going to send the Trump camp into a complaint spiral,
Right.
which is not good for them.
Okay. So
yeah.
Seth, sorry.
I think it matters because when they divide in the polls between likely voters and absolutely definitely will go to the polls, the absolutely definitely intend to vote voters, she gets 2 more points in those polls. So I see this as an enthusiasm, get out the vote type of election. And I think if she gets momentum from something and he gets the opposite from something, if he seems gassed or whatever, I actually think that the I definitely intend to vote, they start getting louder.
Okay.
And because those numbers turn out,
Okay.
then,
Two
the
more.
enthusiasm.
Okay. Two more really, really quick. One more really quick question. Will there be more debates?
No. Not ever. History of mankind.
Okay.
I'm not sitting through another one of these.
Okay. You're not.
They could have another one.
No,
I know
I
I said
think-
no
I
this
think
morning,
there's
but
gonna be-
I think after this one they could have another one.
I don't think
because-
so because
Why would
okay,
she
go ahead.
agree to it?
Yeah.
Everybody agrees that she won.
Well,
the
now
debate.
she's
She'd
going to be
nuts.
confident
No,
because she
now
did
she's
so
gonna-
well.
right. That's
And
what
now
I would
Trump's in a
say.
position where he might want another one in order
Yeah.
to
Yeah, I would.
do his thing. So
Sure.
I started today thinking that there wouldn't
Yeah.
be any other debates, but now I think there could be another one.
Oh,
think
God,
so.
I think absolutely not. I said no, and I think no now. A, because she doesn't. Why would she mess up what she did tonight? And B, because Trump's position is going to be, you can't get a fair debate because when you saw what the moderators did for Kamala tonight, there's no reason the American people should endure that kind of sham again.
Except he may need one because if she gains an enthusiasm advantage,
Well,
he
she'll
may
still,
need the
she'll still
stage. Okay.
say no. Yeah.
Okay. I'm saying I think there's going to be another debate and maybe 2 because they both will want it. She'll want it because maybe she won't pull away, and you only don't want it if you're like reasonably confident that you've got it in the bag, and he will want it to clean himself up or do something or make a point or yell at the moderators. And now my final question, then we will go. If Trump loses, does he run again?
Yes.
And I'm telling you right now, the answer is absolutely yes. And you know what his
Yes.
issue is going to be? ABC.
Well,
David,
that and the
he will
fact that
run
he
again.
will have been in jail. So he's going to be waving the checkered,
The bloody flag?
the striped shirt. Yeah, it's not the
Yeah.
bloody flag. It's like the
Whatever's-
jumpsuit.
the
Yeah, he'll be
jumpsuit.
waving the
Yeah.
jumpsuit. as a martyr to the lawfare and the weaponization, which he brought up tonight. Yeah, of course he's going to run again.
So he's going to run again, everybody.
Yeah.
But
If he
no.
loses.
You're begging the question.
If he loses.
If he loses.
I'm not begging the question because I have no.
Well,
I
you're
don't-
already decided he's going to lose. That's why you're jumping to that.
If
But this
I
is a
were
tree in a
insane
forest
enough,
problem.
if I was insane enough to think that I had the foggiest idea whether he is going to win or lose
What
after
are all
the
these
last
text messages I get then?
No, because like at any given moment, I'm like, he's toast,
I
he's
know.
through. This is
Sure.
ridiculous. Put a fork in him. But of course, that's just because I'm watching with you know,
Yes.
like
It's
with
also
my hands clenched in
Joycean.
horror. But yeah, I have no.
It's your stream of
Hopefully,
consciousness.
hopefully Biden runs again also, and we
Right.
finally get Trump finally gets the opportunity to take Biden one-on-one in revenge for 2020. Maybe they'll both run again if they're
Okay.
alive.
I have more questions, but you know what? It's late. This has been a chaos. This has been more chaotic than the debate. This has been less coherent than
Go
Trump's
hug your pet.
than Trump's
Yes.
performance. Yes. Don't let anyone eat your dog.
This is
My
the
dog-
first.
I'm
this is
not
the-
letting my dog out of the house
This is
because
the
you know
first.
there are some migrants in my neighborhood, and I don't know. They might want to eat my dog. So that
My dog
on
is
a leash.
normally my dog never misses a podcast. He's not in the room with me for this podcast.
Now,
I
by the
didn't
way,
want
this
him
is
to see all this.
This is very important because of all of us. Remember, Trump's the one who introduced the dog. Of all of us, Matt is the one with a cat. And this all started with the danger to cats.
The cat's
So
already in a
I
safe
hope-
location, John.
I hope that Matt is going to take extra care to protect the Continetti family.
My
feline.
cats are indoor cats, so I don't have to worry about the migrants hunting and eating them.
Okay. Unless you live in a housing project and stuff, but I'm not even going to go there. Okay. So the Venezuelan gang cat.
That's a
eaters
separate
could
story
show-
that Trump
That's
wants to talk
Colorado.
about.
Yes,
That's the
okay.
apartment complex
Colorado,
in Aurora,
in Aurora,
Colorado. Yes.
Colorado.
Cats,
Okay,
cats have figured an outsized role here.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
the
Thank
cat
you.
ladies?
You've got J.D. Vance
Yeah,
with
cat
the cat
ladies.
ladies. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, how does he answer a question about cat eating? You know,
He's doubling down on that. It's
yeah,
occurring.
right? Yeah, right.
Remember,
Well,
his problem
every-
isn't with the cats; it's with the women who own them.
Ladies
Right.
and gentlemen, remember it's almost midnight for those of us recording this podcast. So please
Yes,
forget.
yes, and I think it's very important to note that maybe the only way to get those childless cat ladies to go out and have children is to eat their cats.
Well, you know, the running joke on the
You know-
all those TV shows when I was growing up, the running joke was always if you are a childless cat lady, when you die, the cat will eat you. And they won't find you for a week because
Well,
there's the cat's revenge angle of this also.
yeah. Well, there
Who's
was
eating
there.
whom?
Yeah. Okay. I'm not even going to
Who's
go to.
eating whom?
Just look up the Nick Lowe song Marie Provost, and we'll just end there. If you don't know it, look it up.
With nightmares that
That's
we
a
have
great
now.
song, that's right.
Yes, it is a great song.
It's
Anyway,
also-
I'm sorry. We have lost the thread. We'll be back on Thursday. The full house. So for Matt and Christine and Seth and Abe, I'm John Podhoretz. Somehow keep the candle burning.